Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on behalf of National University and Fundraising Academy. My name is Muhi Khwaja, and I am a trainer here. So excited to have you with us. And as we let people get into the presentation, we will just give it a moment to kick things off. Today, we are here to learn 10 strategies to pass the CFRE exam. So we'll do a quick debrief on Fundraising Academy and introduce the presenters, and we will let you know more about what to expect today. So again, thank you so much for being here. And National University is based in San Diego, and the Fundraising Academy is a national program where people can learn best practices based on the cost selling cycle. We have an online learning portal, which we'll touch base on in a little bit as well. And it's really here to help everyday fundraisers, just like yourself and myself, learn these best practices, enjoy these free webinars, and learn more about how to be effective fundraisers. So as I mentioned, my name is Muhi Khwaja. I'm a trainer here. I'm also the co-founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation. I've been a one-person development team at different nonprofits, and I have also been a chief development officer leading a team. So I definitely value these free resources. Our presenters today are going to be Kim Tile and Jack Alato. And Jack is a consultant and trainer with Fundraising Academy and is a CFRE ambassador. He's a graduate of Glassboro State College, which is now Rowan University, and he holds a master's degree from State University of New York at Oswego in both degrees in psychology. Throughout his career, Jack has served a variety of fundraising positions in hospitals, social service, and arts as an executive director, development director, major gift and legacy giving manager, and foundation and corporate relations manager. He is an AFP certified trainer, and he's taught a variety of fundraising classes at JFK University and the Fundraising Academy at National University. He is very well known as being a California CFRE ambassador and very well fit for today's discussion. Many of you have probably been in his famous CFRE study groups, and he's taught CFRE review classes in the US and Canada. He's presented globally at AFP's conferences and has published several articles and blogs. Jack is a hiker, a traveler. He's my personal mentor and friend, and he's so committed and passionate to philanthropy, where he works to diligently advance diversity, equity, inclusion, and access in the sector. So thank you so much, Jack, for everything that you do, and looking forward to having you present today.
Thank you. That was really quite an introduction there. I want to introduce
That was lovely.
I'm going to introduce you at your next webinar because, gosh, I need to bone up one. That was beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And everybody chiming in the chat saying that you're fabulous. So it's not just me. And Kim Tile is a CFRE, well poised to present today as a Chief Development Officer at Ascension Providence and Ascension Providence Rochester Foundations. She's a graduate of the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, where she majored in hotel business with a concentration in hospitality management. This education enabled Kim to get her first job in development in healthcare. She is passionate about serving others and making a meaningful impact. Kim is also Michigan Metro West Region's Foundations for Ascension, and it's probably really cold in Michigan today. I used to live there. So with a heart for philanthropy and a background in hotel business, Kim's journey is driven by the desire to create positive change. As everybody has in the chat, I welcome you all to share where you're from and what you're looking forward to today. So we'll get into the objectives for today's presentation. And I'll
Thank
pass it
you.
over to Kim.
Thanks, Muhi. Yeah, Jack's intro is pretty stellar. Jack, I'm gonna work on mine. We're gonna get there. So as Muhi shared, I am up in beautiful freezing
Right there.
Michigan with negative 18 degrees. I'm the Chief Development Officer for Ascension, Michigan's Metro West region. As he shared, I oversee 2 foundations that support 4 hospitals, countless medical centers, and physician practices. And it's an honor to be here. I received my CFRE in January of 2023, or June of 2023, excuse me, just last year, and started studying in January. And one of the biggest pieces when Jack asked me to join this webinar was to really dig deep and think about what it took to get there. Being in a high-level professional position, and then I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, 2 boys, I have a very, very full schedule, and I haven't studied in over 20 years. So the first thing I had to do, the biggest piece of it, was I had to have the right mindset, create focus, have a positive frame of mind. It's really hard. There were days I was exhausted and I could not retain anything, but staying positive, and you'll see this as a trend through the entire presentation, your mind and your mindset will take you through to help you pass. We're then going to take you through several strategies, resources, time management, a great deal of tools that from my experience and from those that Jack's learned from, how we can really help all of you get to where you need to be and pass the CFRE exam if you need to as well. If you would like to, we are here to support. That's why we're here. So those are the key objectives wrapped up. I will go through all 10 at the end of the webinar as well.
Great. So, Louis, this is your area of expertise.
Fine, I will gladly share more about the cause selling cycle. And essentially at Fundraising Academy, this is our guiding principle of how to build relationships through the cause selling cycle. And it includes 8 essential steps, as you see outlined here, regardless of the gift potential. These are the predictable actions that must be performed to build strong relationships. And these became the steps in this cycle. Phase 1 is all the necessary work to prospect for qualified potential donors. And phase 2 is the face-to-face time with the prospective donors. And phase 3 includes everything after the gift is given. So if you think about it, the prospecting and pre-approach is all of that sort of discovery work of what connects your donor to your mission. In phase 2, the approach and need discovery is looking into more about how you're going to engage that donor. The presentation is when you will be getting more information to the donor about your mission. And then you may be handling some objections that come up. And these are guiding principles to get you closer to a yes before you make the ask. And then we all know how important stewardship is. So this is a very brief overview, and we have presentations on each and every step and phase. And all of that is in our learning portal online, which we will close with as well. The next slide that I will also share a little bit more about is how the cause selling cycle aligns with the CFRE exam domains. I myself have been through 2 of Jack's study groups last year. My exam is scheduled for January 29th, so clicking down the cycle. And I'm super excited, like many of you who are probably in the same situation, and truth be told, a little nervous as well. I've had my CFRE in the past. I let it lapse, so now I'm here sitting again for the exam, and just super stoked to add those letters at the end of my name again. So in relation to the cause selling cycle, this is how the CFRE exam domains fit into each of those phases. So I'm sure we're going to dive deep into each of the domains today, But as you are familiar, you have current and prospective donor research, which is phase 1 of the cost selling cycle. You have securing the gift, which is phase 3. You have relationship building, which is phase 2. Volunteer involvement, which is all 3 phases. And then Fundraising Academy also has what are called the fundraising fundamentals. And those are the best practices for how to manage your organization and development staff. So those fall under the 5th and 6th domains of leadership management, ethics, accountability, and professionalism. So I'm going to pass it back to you guys. I'm here as a resource. And if you have any other questions, I can chime in too. But everybody's here to listen to Jack and Kim. So I will pass it back over.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that. And, I'm a huge fan of the cost selling model of fundraising. And the reason why I'm such a fan of it, aside from the CFRE model, is that the cost selling model works, Louis, and you probably can verify that as well. So the first strategy that we want to talk about, which I think is really important for you on your way to passing the CFRE, is to assess your knowledge. What do you know about those 6 domains that are covered on the CFRE exam? What do you know about prospect research? What do you know about securing the gift? What do you know about relationship building? What do you know about using volunteers as an important asset in your work as a fundraising professional? What do you know about leadership and management of the fundraising process? And finally, one of the most important things that we talk about across the board, whether it's cost selling or CFRE, is how do you apply those ethical standards to the work we do? So where can you best assess your knowledge of the 6 domains? Well, the first place I highly recommend is that if you purchase the practice test at CFRE.org, you could do that there. The practice test is broken up into the domains, and it will tell you how it has practice questions with practice answers, and it will tell you where you are, how you are doing in each of those 6 domains. A second place, which is really important to assess your knowledge of the 6 domains, is in the CFRE study guide, which you're going to hear both Kim and I recommend over and over again. You cannot do anything beyond this point until you understand what you're gonna need to study to pass the test. If you find, as you assess your knowledge, that leadership and management is an area that you have a softness in, then that's where you might focus some of your efforts. Mm-hmm. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kim. Or is it me next?
It's you next, still Jack.
Learning style. So I love learning style. And here's what I did yesterday. I Googled developing a learning style. And some of the things that I came up with as it relates to learning style is that there are really 3 basic learning styles that we all utilize. Now, here's the thing about us. Mui is an adult. I'm an adult, Kim's an adult, and the person behind the Fundraising Academy logo is an adult. We learn differently. We're not junior high school students. We learn by doing, we learn by processing things. We are either visual learners, or we are auditory learners, or we are tactile learners. Now, I'm a combination of all of those. I'm the kind of guy who likes to read a book and use a highlighter, the yellow highlighter, to highlight things. From that, I like to do the next thing, which is to take notes from what I've highlighted in the books. For some of us, as it says on this slide, it may have been 20 years. I'm a guy who likes to figure out how I learn best. And this goes way back to high school. Think about the tests that you've had in high school or college or graduate school and how you prepared to pass those tests. I remember studying chemistry in high school thinking, I have no idea what this periodic table is all about. But I developed a way to do that. And part of it was repeating over and over again. One of the things that I like to do is also do tactile. I'm a guy who likes a hardcover book in my hand. I like to read a book. Some people like audible books, and there are audible books of some of these books that we are going to recommend going forward. So the second strategy that we're talking about after you assess your knowledge is to understand your unique learning style. And be sure to study for yourself and not for others. Once you figure out your learning style, maybe what you might want to do is find others who share that learning style. Kim?
I'm going to take it from here. So I think that's one of a really big piece that you just talked about, Jack, is learning or knowing your own study style and running with it. Don't try to recreate something because somebody else is. I went back to the basics. I truly, same thing. I like a hardcover book, and I'll show you all of the books that I reviewed. And as we go through the session, I highlighted, hi Linda Karen, I highlighted all of the notes that really stuck out and were relevant to me. And then I transcribed them. I put them in a notebook. I typed them up. I did not recreate anything. And so I think, to your point, Jack, find like-minded people and really gravitate toward that group. So this next slide is joining a study group. I cannot tell you enough about the famous Jack Alato and his Saturday morning study sessions. They're free. There are a ton of instructors and teachers out there who are offering these sessions. My study style, my learning style is Jack, 100%. The way he presents, the way he talks to you, not at you, he gets you involved and engaged. And then after the study session, you receive all the content so you can continue to review and build off of your own notes. So find a big study group. And then from there, as we already shared, get a smaller study group. Find people who are like-minded. I will tell you, I joined several study groups. Not all of them were right for me, so I excused myself. And I didn't want to join a study group with someone who just talked at me. Whether I'm an introvert or I'm more passive or not, I wanted to be able to get something out of it. So make sure you're doing this for yourself along the way. If it is not value, if you're not getting good new content or learning in a way that works for you, take a step back, find another group.
Yeah.
Our group originally last January, we started going with people in the same time zone. And while it started to work, we found we were finding people in all sorts of other time zones, and it worked with our schedules. You joined the ones that really worked: weeknights, week mornings, weekends. And it was fun meeting people in Canada, talking to people who are in sunny California, while we're sitting in this dreary weather. So
Yeah.
it was a really cool opportunity to also just get to know people all across the state. So study groups, 1,000,000% will help you along the way.
Can I first I want to ask Mui a question since he's in the throes of this right now. Are you in a smaller study group, Mui?
So I had joined one in the fall with you in 2023 and did another one for BIPOC men. So those were the two that I did.
Okay.
I have been doing self-study instead of joining a smaller group because that's just based on my time and flexibility of when I can get to it. During the weekdays, I do 2 hours a day, and on the weekends, I do 1 hour.
Yeah.
So this has been since the end of December, because now I was 1 month out from my exam. So I've been going through your emails that you send daily, and also the Exam Compass study guide book from CFRE. So those have been my two that things that I've been
Yeah.
doing lately. Yeah,
And I think what you're illustrating by those comments, Mui, is your unique learning style,
exactly.
how you like to learn. And it's as an individual, setting your own pace, setting your own direction, what your focus is, etc. Kim, one of the things that I love about these smaller study groups, and you've heard me say this, is the bonds that take place in these smaller study groups. And I know some of them meet like monthly and from at some place that's in between. Tell us about your smaller study group. I think you met with them yesterday, was it?
We did, yeah. So there was a final study group. There's a group of us from March on who continued to meet until all four of us passed. And Linda is from Ontario, Canada. Felicia is from Texas, and then Angie is from Virginia. And I saw two of them are on today already because they wanted to cheer us on, Jack. This group came from Jack's study groups, and on top of us all supporting one another and not, like I said, we made it to the end. We all had a drink together after the last person, passed, and it was absolutely incredible. Best part, I have family in Haliburton, Ontario, that's 8 hours northeast of here. And so I took my kids there for the holidays, and on the way back, I took the kids and I got to meet Linda in person after studying for months and months and months. And we gave the biggest hug, and we were just looking at each other. This is so bizarre, but it was like we were lifelong friends. So yes, what has come out of it since is that we still meet every 2 weeks. If somebody's not available, that's okay, but we do it bright and early in the morning. We talk business. We talk about best practices, but we've also got to know one another where we can help each other personally too. So it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
I love that about our study groups and the
So,
bonding
Jack,
that takes place. Yes, sir.
there's a common question in the chat, and it is, how do we get into Jack's study group?
Well, just send me an email. We started a week ago, but it's not too late. You just missed the first domain, but we'll catch you up.
Mhm.
And I'll put my email in the chat as well, Louis. So definitely people can definitely join that group. I will say that we have 156 people in there, but that does not deter me. Let me tell you, the more the merrier.
Yeah, and then we have another question from Heather. Aside from CFRE's listings, where is everyone finding study groups?
Ah, good question. Kim, you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
I'm happy to add to it. So I found my study groups through Jack. I found Jack on LinkedIn. I just did a search for Jack Alato. At the end of the presentation, you'll have our full names if you don't see them to the side, as well as QR codes. So you can link right in and connect with us. There's Jack's email in the chat as well. But I found my study groups as breakouts from Jack's bigger group.
Mm-hmm. And study groups are listed at CFRE.org. In fact, Mui and I have a study group coming up in April that's listed up there. So definitely check that out. There are other study groups that are listed up there aside from the ones that I host, or that Mui and I will host, or me and other people will host. So check them out. There's lots of great information at there. I think it's under study aids, and so you'll see study groups under there as well.
If you go to exam prep, Jack, so it's CFRE.org, click on exam prep, which will give you all of the great resources. There it is, /study-groups. And there are quite a few going on right now. It looks like there are currently 6, and there could be others.
Great. And then I see also Lee messaged the hosts and panelists saying, Tacoma, Washington based, we have a weekly study group that gathers at Red Star Tacos at 4 p.m. on Tuesdays.
Nice.
I might just join.
Nice.
Me too. I'm in. Dude, I am in. Red Star Taco sounds like a place where they have hot sauce. I am totally in there.
So I see some good comments. If you have the capability, make sure you message to everyone and not just the hosts and panelists, because some messages are just coming to us and we want everybody to see your messages as well. So yeah, definitely the study group that Jack mentioned. I wanted to make sure that Muslims had the opportunity to increase their visibility in fundraising and make sure that we hosted a Muslim CFRE study group. So Jack was kind enough to connect us with CFRE. We're working with AFP Global to create an affinity group and work with more Muslim fundraisers and development professionals to earn their CFRE. So whether you have another affinity group that wants to launch something, like I said, I was part of a BIPOC men's group. And then we are, again, doing this Muslim one. So if you know other people that want to do a specific affinity group, I'm sure Jack and CFRE would be amenable to that as well.
Yeah, and since I know that the Muslim affinity group, I know this is a little aside, is going to be part of the religious affinity group. I know that now others are working on other religions to establish affinity groups. And you know what? DEIA or IDEA, we're all for it, guys. The more people who become CFREs, especially people from marginalized communities, LGBTQ included, people of color, people from religious minorities, or any persecuted group of people, we want you in our study groups. We want to see that happen. Okay, shall we continue on? There we go.
Absolutely. Also, really quickly, when you're on CFRE.org and you are in the exam prep, there's a study plan template. Use that and take that as your baby and really work through it as you're working through your time management.
Yeah.
So
one other thing, Kim, before I forget,
you're good.
CFRE, whenever I've connected with CFRE about any study group, Muslim, people of color, etc., they have always said, go for it. Go for it. They have encouraged us to do that, and that is really awesome. They're with us on creating a more diverse population of CFREs, and that makes me feel so good. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good. You brought up a great point that is so important. We want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get their CFRE in advance. Because quite frankly, when you get your CFRE, you're doing it because you want to enhance your career, but you also want to advance your career. You want to get into leadership. CFREs are the next leaders. So I think getting everyone in the whole world involved, whether it's race, religion, a 1,000,000%. So here's a big ticket item. We cannot memorize while we are studying for the CFRE. It's very important that you don't follow what you think you know when you study. You follow what's in the book. CFRE is textbook. In order to pass the exam, you have to get out of your own head. And I say that because many of us are professionals. Many of us are CDOs or executive directors. We've overseen several areas, and we think that because of how we're doing it, it's the right way. Wrong. Follow what's in the book. CFRE is not necessarily how it's done in the world. And so don't memorize the content. When you're taking the practice exam, don't memorize it. Take the exam, understand how the question is written, and then pull out distractors. The question will give you the answer. So I just want to preface that as well. When you're going through and you're learning and you're taking the practice exam or you're reading the content, one of the biggest pieces that I learned from Jack is the what, when, how, and why model, essentially, I would call it. And that is taking all of the different models and processes that you're learning about with all of the 6 domains, and you're asking, what is it? When do you use it? How do you use it? And why do you use it? Rosso's concentric circle is a perfect example. Rosso's concentric circle is all about linkage, ability, and interest. It's about a strategy used to organize your fundraising plan, bring together your time, your resources. It's a model. It's an inner circle model where you start with your management, you start with your board, you start with your major donors, and you ask them first. That's what Rosso's concentric circle is. Then you go to when. When do you use it? When you are ready to approach donors. When you're going through your campaign, when you're going through your process, when you're ready. How do you use it? You start at the center. You go to the board members, you go to management, you go to the major donors, and you ask them first. You ask them for their time, their talent, and your treasure. You ask them to get involved. Why do you use it? This relates back to the donor period. It relates back to your gift range chart, which you should be working through all of that as well. Everything starts at the inner circle, which is your top. These are the people who are going to give first. They're going to promote what you're working on. They're going to push whatever campaign or initiative is that you have. So I will tell you, Jack, I sent him so many different documents that I created. I created a what, when, how, and why document for so many things. I did it for a feasibility study. I did it for the rule of thirds. I did it for the donor pyramid. And I just had this huge document. I created other documents, processes documents. It was what helped me learn and helped me study. And I can't push enough. Don't memorize the test practice exam questions.
Yeah.
Know how to use them. Jack,
Right.
I know you have some thoughts on this portion too.
Yeah, I mean, it's memorizing. It's the difference between being a fundraising beginner and a fundraising leader. Understanding the what, when, how, and why we use a certain process in fundraising is what leaders do. And I'm gonna, and Louie, I'm gonna call on you to help me out with this. In our cost selling cycle, you could take so many of the concepts that we have and apply that what, when, how, and why. One of the things that I love in our cost selling cycle, and I'm very fond of Louie, is presentation style. That part of our fundraising process where we go and meet with a prospective donor and we present. And rather than memorize what an impromptu presentation is or what a memorized presentation is, my big thing is understand when you would use a memorized presentation or an impromptu presentation, when you and how you would use it, and why that specific donor would dictate or tell you or inform you which presentation style to use. So this concept that Kim is talking about, a what, when, how, and why, can be applied across the board. Think of feasibility study or development audit, or when would you do it? Why would you do it? How would you do it? And why? Why would you do it? So remember that going forward, whether it's for the CFRE exam or anything else. Thank you.
It's so important. Don't memorize. And this is the difference too during the process. When you can explain Rosso's concentric circle or the gift range chart and just talk through it as if you're talking about the what, when, how, and why, that's when you're ready to take the exam. If you can't with all of these different models or different processes, keep studying. I promise you, keep studying, because you really need to be able to answer the questions. And the questions are written in a very difficult manner. You want to make sure you're not memorizing things. You will give yourself a false sense of hope when you go in to take the exam. And then sadly, you may not pass. And that is not what we want to help you do here. So just please do not memorize unless you're memorizing definitions. When you're in CFRE and you do the practice exam, what's really cool about it is you get flashcards as well. You can memorize what something is and the definition is till your heart is content. Don't do that though with the questions.
Yeah, good advice.
One question about scheduling for the exam came in, And it's asking, can you take the exam at any time, or are there only certain times you can take it? Now, when I scheduled, I don't know if this was just me, I wanted to try to do it in like the first 2 weeks of January, but I didn't see anything until mid to later January. I don't know if there were blackout dates for holidays or what, but also I knew I wanted to take it at a in-person testing facility and not at my home online.
Yeah.
So I think those were some discrepancies for myself. But Kim and Jack, do you have any more insight into if there are certain times you can take the exam?
There are blackout dates. So they black out during the holidays into January 15th. So your first window of availability is January 15th through March 15th. You have a 60-day window. Then you have March 15th to June 15th. I believe then it shut down for a month at that time. Don't correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, but I'm pretty positive that they shut down June 15th to July 15, pick it back up July 15 to September, and then there's a final 2-month window later in the year. So there are times, and Muhi, you brought up a huge point. I beg of every one of you, do not take the exam at home. Do not.
Yeah.
I've heard horror stories, and there are so many things that are out of your control where you have a moderator watching you, and if the Pearson VUE app shuts down, you fail. If you make a move and scratch your leg, the moderator sits straight, or else I'll shut down your exam. I mean, who needs that kind of pressure for a 4-hour exam?
Yeah.
Go into a study center where you can move around in your chair, because the moderator can see your full body, that you're just scratching your leg. It's so key to the power of yet, and let's be positive, know what you're getting into. Don't take the test at home. Go to a testing center. I've also heard of people who have gone to a testing center, the internet didn't work, but because they were at one of the approved Pearson VUE testing sites, they were able to help to get the test rescheduled. They didn't fail. So you have somebody else who's a Pearson VUE representative monitoring and advocating for you. That's huge. When you do it at your house, you don't have that. Thinking that you're going to be able to have a cocktail or put your feet up after, just because you're doing it at home, don't do it. Do not take the exam at home. I beg of you.
Right.
Also,
and I've heard some horror stories too.
Go ahead.
Kim. The cat comes into the room and pulls the plug out of the computer, and the person fails.
They fail.
The boyfriend walks in the room. The water spills on the laptop. There's so many different things. So I also agree with you. Take the test in person. And I just think that's the way to go. It's much better. And like Kim said, it's really important to have a live person there who will help you out. The other thing, if you have, remember this, guys, if you have some special circumstances that you need in order to take the test. And believe me, I've heard many of them. People who have attention deficit disorder. Some people need to read the questions out loud. Some people need a really quiet space. If you're other abled in some way, it's really important that you connect with CFRE with a doctor's note. They do require a doctor's note. They will accommodate you. Now, I did speak to someone north of the border in Canada, and she had to take the test virtually because she was in such a rural community that in order for her to drive to the test, it would have been in this terrible winter weather we're having. I'm sure the Canadians are experiencing it as well, through snow and ice. And so I get if you absolutely have to. But remember, your children could interrupt you. Your spouses could interrupt you. There's lots of ways that they could just say, I don't see you completely on the camera, or you went black on the camera, or whatever it is. You want to be really careful that you're not failed for something that is really out of your control.
I've heard that too, where a husband or a partner walked in the back and they shut the camera down saying you're cheating. So when you're in a testing center, you, like I said, you have to go in by yourself, and then you have that moderator who's your advocate. They know that you're not doing things dishonestly. Quite frankly, you're going to have your husband or your spouse study with you. Oh my gosh, it is a project. And so another thing I wanted to share to alleviate fear is go to the testing site in advance. If you've never been to the Pearson VUE testing center you are going to test at, go in advance, figure out where the parking is. If you have to have money for a meter, know which door to go into. It's amazing the morning of how many little things will stress you out. And you have to set yourself up for success. You have to be able to believe in yourself. And yes, this slide is one of the strategies. You have to have positive affirmations and the power of yet. You have not yet received your CFRE, you will. So when you study and when you go into the exam with the mindset that you have put your all into it, you are going to pass. And I think it's very, very important to knock out any fear that you have. It doesn't matter how high level you are truly in your professional career. We all get shaken up by something that could be the smallest thing. A 4-hour exam is no joke, you guys. This is a very long, extensive exam, and you need to get all of the uncertainties out of the way. I can't emphasize that enough.
Were you fearful of the test, Kim? What was your fear level before you took the test?
I was incredibly anxious. Yes. I was incredibly anxious because I hadn't studied in over 20 years. And there were so many people who I had heard who passed, so many people who didn't. On CFRE's webpage as well, they say if you are a seasoned professional, you'll need to study maybe 40 to 80 hours. Everyone, like Muhi said, everyone studies differently in a different amount of hours, a different time frame. You can use that as a guide. I did not. I studied far more than 80 hours because it was what I needed. And let's be frank, when you're a full-time and a half professional and you have kids, how much are you retaining in the study groups, or how much are you retaining in the books? So I knew myself well enough to know I needed to spend more time, reread the same thing, and just continue through that cycle until I got it. But yes, absolutely. I was very anxious. I personally had a lot of positive affirmations. I pray. I am Christian. I'm faith-filled. So I prayed. I meditated. When you go up north in Michigan, there are all these beautiful stones. And if you have a quartz stone, the energy and positivity, I did everything. Find what works for you. But I did. I mean, I took every positive power. I had quartz stones all over my house while I was praying and meditating. It like you just do what makes the difference for you. But yes, I did them all.
Good. I remember in a previous study group, I don't think it was yours, Kim, but somebody said to me that they do positive affirmations, and what they do is they go, I will be a CFRE. They use the tactile sense, the touch, and they repeat that over and over again. For me, positive affirmations are one of the most important things I've learned in my life, whether it's to pass an exam like CFRE or to overcome some other thing that I might be working on, whether it's to lose weight or whatever. I love positive affirmations because it's us instructing ourselves to control our mind to do something the way we want to. And I just love it. I love positive affirmations. Be careful of those negative affirmations because they are out there too. Some of our negative affirmations involve imposter syndrome, or you think you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or it's been too long since you've taken a test. Put those negative affirmations out of your mind and only focus on the positive. I know I sound like Santa Claus right now, but that's okay. I don't mind. I could grow that beard really long. So definitely, Use those positive affirmations.
So true. Jack, talk about the imposter syndrome in CFRE studying.
So I am right now reading a great article from UC Berkeley, and I'm going to put it in a CFRE minute one day this week. But imposter syndrome is where we think we're not good enough. And where we think we're not good enough comes from a lot of things outside of ourselves. It's a predominant characteristic in women that they can't understand or they don't have the knowledge, as well as marginalized communities and people of color. Our society, unfortunately, I'm talking about the American society. I'll leave the Canadians to figure out their own. But unfortunately, we have this thing in our society where we tell people of color or people from marginalized communities that they don't they're not good enough. They can't do it. And I want to see us get over that.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim, I've mentioned it. I've had some people when they send me an email, I say, I've passed this test. And I actually had someone say to me in that same email, I've passed the test. And thank goodness I've mitigated my imposter syndrome. And I just love that. I think
Yes.
if that's such a beautiful sentiment. And I remember when I was reading that email, I felt like crying. I mean, seriously, and I haven't cried since, Bambi got injured in the Disney cartoon. But it's such an important thing. Get rid of those imposter syndrome things that have been planted in our mind by society and the majorities in our country. So that's really important.
I love that. Thank you. I cried when I passed the exam finally, Jack.
You did? Good. That's because you believe in the power of yet. What's the
I
power of
believe
yet?
I believe in the power of yet. That's right. You're going to go in and once you know the location when you take your exam and once you sit down in front of the computer, like Jack said too, I requested headphones, noise canceling headphones when I went into the testing center, and that was accommodated. So know that that's out there and ask for it in advance. Who cares if you need to get a doctor's note? Call up the office, let them know what you're doing. Your doctor will gladly write out a note for you to get whatever you need. Do it in advance. I think I saw somebody in the chat who asked what kind of a time frame. I started in January. Several people I started with had already been studying for a month or two, and they were testing by March 15th. I didn't test until the summer. It was everybody's it was everybody's comfort level. 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, do what's right for you, but also, again, make it fluid. Don't set yourself parameters and then beat yourself down because in 4 months or 6 months, you're not quite ready. You are able to move the test into the next window. You pay a minimal fee. It's a very small fee to move it into the next window so that you give yourself the grace that you need. Should a life event come up or a big work project come up, things are going to change all the time. Emily says it's $35. Move it into the next session and don't stress yourself out. Stay positive and believe in yourself all the time. Along the way, if you're in a study group and you're exhausted, excuse yourself. Just know yourself, truly.
Yeah. And I talk to people all the time who haven't passed the test the first time. And so why the power of yet? So, my mantra is, guys, there's no such thing as failing CFRE. It's just that you haven't passed the test yet. And I think with some change in your strategies, as that we're talking about now, as well as your study habits, your learning style, understanding all those things, you'll get there. And I go back to my high school days in chemistry, back to that nasty chemistry class that I took in high school. And I remember I didn't pass my first chemistry test, and I went home and I said to my dad, "Hey, Dad, I didn't pass the chemistry test." And I thought he was going to yell at me saying, "Whoa, you didn't study enough. You didn't do this enough. You don't know the periodic table. What's going on here?" And instead, what he said to me, which has stayed with me all these many years, is that, "Jack, You just haven't passed it yet. You'll pass it, and you will. Let me say one other thing here, because I always have to say this. CFRE is just a credential, guys. It's not a definition of who you are as a development professional. It's not everything that you are. And it's okay. I know tons of absolutely excellent development professionals who are not CFREs. And I'm sure Mui does too, and Kim, you do as well. So as much as we love the credential and I advocate for it, and I will always do that, it doesn't have to be for everyone.
That's very important. It may not be right for you. And I think that's important to listen to yourself as well. Amen, Jack.
Yeah.
I think more importantly as well, it's why do you want it?
Yeah.
Right? Is it you're a consultant and you want to add credibility to your business and nonprofits engaging with you in fundraising? That's a good reason. Are you at an organization and feel like if you get your CFRE, it'll earn to higher pay? It's possible. But I think if we focus on really being great relationship builders
Yep.
with our missions that we serve, regardless of whether you're a CFRE or not, having that discipline of looking at how you can move your mission forward. That's really what's most important. If you have those 4 letters after your name, yes, it extends credibility and you're in this network of thousands of other people throughout the world. But I think just focus on what your reason for taking this exam is. You can still be a fantastic development professional without it.
Yeah.
However, I think that there's merit in earning it, and that's why we're having this conversation.
Right. And the merit is that it's a testament of your professionalism to your staff, the people who work for you, to your supervisors, those who you work for, your board of directors, but most importantly, to your donors. It is a signal to your donors that this is your career. This is where you have settled in your life's work. At least that's what it was for me. Okay. So training is not optional. This is a mantra. This is a positive affirmation from the cost selling curriculum. Training is not optional for us as professional development professionals. For example, whether you're achieving the CFRE or you're attending the Fundraising Academy at National University, or even the Lilly School of Philanthropy at Indiana University, we must continually upgrade our knowledge. For example, I like to use this as an example. When I received the 5th edition of Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, I learned about some really important concepts that in my 30-year career in fundraising, I had never heard of. And because I was, learning new things and training about this new approach like community-centric fundraising, or a theory of philanthropy for myself, or how marginalized communities or people of color make gifts, all of those things seemed to be new to me when I got that book. So I really urge you to continually learn new concepts and open your eyes. You could attend conference. And here's my ad for the Cultivate conference, which is coming up here. And I know Faith Martin is going to put Cultivate in our chat so that people could register for it, because that's a place where we could get additional training. Or AFP Icon, which I'm sure many of you will be at. I know I will be at there, and hopefully Kim and Mui will join me there as well. Get organized. Here's how you get organized. Organize yourself. Once you've understand your knowledge areas and what you need to work on, get a study plan. And I like a spreadsheet that shows exactly what you're going to study every day, week by week, up until the date of your test. Get motivated. Be your own cheerleader. We talked about positive affirmations. That's how you get motivated. Okay. Get an accountability partner. What Kim did with her smaller study group of Angie, Felicia, and Linda, they were her accountability partners. They helped her, mentored her, she mentored them, and she was their accountability partner as well. So do definitely get an accountability partner. Get motivated. Here's the thing that I want to say over and over again. Have self-confidence. Do smaller increments of study. Don't try to do it all at once. Do a smaller increment of study. And here's another thing, which I think is something we could all use, not only as it relates to CFRE, tolerate failure. Failure is not about us. Tolerate it. It's okay. Only by failing do we learn what to do next. It's so informative. Manage your time. Eliminate distractions. We say this in class selling all the time around time management. Eliminate distractions. When you're following that study plan, shut your cell phone off. Close your office door. Ask your husband, your wife, whomever to take care of the kids as you're studying. That's really important. And be focused. Accept the challenge that you are about to take. Because listen, Kim and Louie and I, we're going to be with you. That's what I like to say. I will be with you for as long as you will be with it. That's my mantra. Okay. Be future focused, accept challenges and see them as opportunities to grow. That's what we talk about. Remember this, here is such an important thing. In the CFRE Compass Study Guide, beginning on page 90, they give you the strategies you need to answer the question. They talk about distractors, that two of the answers may be very right, but only one is the single most important right answer. They talk about looking for keywords in the question. I love this strategy. Look for keywords in the question, try to understand what that keyword is, and then when you go and read all of the answers, look for words in the answers that match that keyword. Here's another strategy that I like that they talk about. Read the entire question and read every one of the answers. If A looks right, don't shoot for A right away. Make sure you read B, C, and D before you get the answer, before you put your answer in. Really important. One of the things that I like to say is that when I'm looking at questions in the CFRE Compass Review book, and they give you questions, practice questions at the end of each domain in that book, which is really helpful. And let me say one other thing about this Compass Guide. CFRE publishes only one book, guys. It's the study guide. Doesn't that make sense for you to get that book? It really
It's in
does.
focus. It's not in focus. Yeah.
Yes. Say again.
This is blurry. I tried showing it to everybody, but it's showing up as blurry because of my background. Mooey, we can't even see it. Now you're gone.
There it is. There it is. It's the blue book. Oh, I thought for a minute there I went off camera or something.
No.
Good. Yeah, that's the book. One of the things that I like to do so we know there are 6 domains, right? So when you're reading the question, if you can figure out which domain that question is from, if it's from ethics, then put your mind into that domain. That's another shorthanded way of helping you answer the question. If it's about marketing, you might know that that's leadership and management. If it's about planned gifts, leadership and management. If it's about Ross's concentric circles, maybe that's prospect race research. So remember to please try to put your mind in it. When studying and preparing for the exam, be sure to take your personal work experience off the table. For example, You may have one of the greatest stewardship plans ever imagined. You probably should write a book about it. It's that good. But that's not what you're going to be tested on. Remember, this test is an international test that's gathered from many English speaking countries. And I'm sure some other countries that do not speak English. So it's not going to be about necessarily your best practice. It might be what CFRE has determined through this testing process of creating the test that they've determined is the best practice. So remember to do that definitely, okay? Kim,
Question that I
go ahead.
wanted to put in here for the process of the exam. I took the exam back in 2016. So my memory of it is a little shaky. When it says, this domain is X amount of questions, domain 2, 3, 4, X amount of questions, is the exam in order of and section by domain, or are all of the domains and questions just in there?
It is scattered throughout, and I did not bring the numbers, but it's definitely, you'll see it. It's in CFRE.org, how it's weighted, where 50 something questions are leadership and management. It is such a scramble of all of the questions. They do not intentionally, they do not put it in there nearly that structured.
No.
And I think that's, when Jack was talking about the keywords and the distractors, I found when I was taking the practice exam, I kept picking the distractor answer. And so what I ended up doing while I was reading, as I got closer to the exam, is I started breaking down the ones after I went back. I started breaking down the questions that I got wrong to figure out, why was I picking the distractor? What was it about that answer that enticed me? Because both of them could be right, but one of them was only CFRE right. And I think that's something that, again, you want to watch for that. You want to figure out how to pivot and shift so that you're seeing what the right answer is and why that is the right answer. That was so important for me in order to pass.
That's a beautiful strategy. Okay. Understanding how to answer the question is I think we've had more than 10 strategies here, by the way.
We have, yeah.
But that's a great strategy. And Kim, when I speak with people who haven't passed the test yet, typically it's not a knowledge deficit. They know fundraising, but they haven't developed either a learning style or understand their learning style, or they haven't developed a strategy to answer the questions. And that's where that CFRE Compass study guide comes in.
Yes.
It helps you to understand. And I always say, don't start at page 1, start at page 90. And then after you've read the strategies that they give you, they tell you how to pass their test.
Yes.
So listen to them.
They tell you exactly what to look for. It's so important. That's the Exam Compass is the only book CFRE has put out there, and they give you the insights on what to watch for when you're reading a question, and you have to get out of your head. And I went into the exam as well. Oh, I'm not a good test taker. Who cares? This has nothing to do about whether you're a good test taker or not. It has to do with you putting together the what, when, how, and why of fundraising, of everything having to do with philanthropy, and understanding that information, and then knowing how to answer the CFRE question the CFRE way.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really good strategy to remember.
It looks like Vincent just put in the chat the breakdown.
Yeah.
Current and prospective donor research is 26 questions. Securing the gift is 39. Yeah, relationship building. That is a quarter of the exam. 26% is relationship building. Volunteer involvement is 10. Leadership and management is 31. And then ethics and accountability is 18. I really struggled with leadership and management. That was a really difficult domain for me. So
Right.
as again, it got closer, I went and focused on the domains I struggled with, or I just couldn't quite.
Yeah.
I thought I knew the content, but every time I took the practice exam, I would get a 70% or lower. To me, I wanted to be able to ace the information so I knew my knowledge. So
Yeah.
as you get closer as well, really focus on the domains that you don't feel as comfortable with.
Yeah. And those three domains are really important. Leadership and management it's really a lot in there. There's marketing, there's plan gifts, there's capital campaigns, there's so much in there. So, it's really a busy domain.
Very busy.
Okay.
So I know we have a questions section, but they've been coming in and I want to make sure that we address some of them. So there's anonymous attendee in CFRE's webinars. They tell us the exam is in two parts. Do we get questions from certain domains more in part one than in part two, or vice versa?
It is, so there are 4 exams. There are 4 CFRE versions of the exam from my understanding, and it's 200 questions. You will go in and you will take the first 100 questions, and then you have the opportunity to stop and take, I think it's a 10-minute break. Your moderator at the testing center will log you out, and then you take your break. Please take a break, clear your mind, refresh, do what you need to do, and then you go back in and you take the last 100. There's no theory from my understanding from when I took the test recently. There was not a method to it. It was just a bunch of questions. It's not necessarily any domains in the beginning or the end. They're just strewn out. There's just a bunch of they're all over the place.
Good.
I definitely reiterate though, take a break after the first 100, just shake it off.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to take a break. Here's the other thing. Another strategy that's really important. So you get a whiteboard, right, Kim? It's been a while since I've taken the test, where you could you could tag questions that you want to come back to. Well, I want to tell you about a famous study from Cornell University. Be careful about changing your answers, guys. Make sure you really feel that maybe the answer you put is incorrect. I remember when I took the test way back before fire and dinosaurs were chasing me to the exam site, that kind of thing. I remember that after I finished the test, I started going back and looking at every single question and doubting my answers. Don't do that. There's a famous study from Cornell University that says that is a recipe to get the question wrong.
Yeah.
Unless you have a really serious notion that maybe that answer isn't right and you had put it on your whiteboard or you had somehow noted it in the exam that you want to go back to, don't do it.
Exactly. So you can flag questions. I even did. I think maybe 1 or 2 I changed, but then I self-corrected and I did look at them. I looked at every one I flagged in the first 100, and after I went back and I just double, triple read them. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, like Muhi said, and don't change them. The Cornell study is so accurate and on point. Another good point, the 10-minute break that you take does not count toward your 4 hours. It is an additional 10 minutes that you will get. It's free time. So make sure you're watching the clock. You can flag questions in the corner. You can also have a clock countdown in the corner. And I think the clock starts backwards. Like you start with whatever number of minutes, 240 minutes or what, and it counts down. So make sure that you are paying attention to the countdown and not thinking backwards that you have excess or vice versa. I mean, I've heard people too have gotten kind of caught up with the time and then it stressed them out.
Yep, I agree. That happens.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments, Moo, you want to bring up to us that we have some time? I know we have a couple more slides, but
Yeah, let's get through the slides and then we can round out the
okay,
questions at the
okay,
end.
that's a plan.
Alrighty, so this, oh, that's funny. You can pull the whole thing up, Jack. It's weird that it's pulling up like this. We've already shown you some, and I took the blur off the background so you could see. I'm going to show everybody the books. The Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, this is version 5. Version 4 is out there. I read version 4. Version 4 also has an audio file. I was one of the special people who thought if I listened to it while I was driving, I was really going to learn. Didn't gain a thing. So if you can listen to something and capture the information and take your own notes, fantastic. That did not work for my brain. I saw something sparkly, or I don't know, I paid attention to the road. It was white noise. So AEF 5 is the new one that I would gather CFRE is going in a direction to or toward. The AFP CFRE Refresher is another book. And I don't know where I put that one at. However, the Fundraising Basics book is another book. This one's really
Yeah,
old. This is 3rd edition from 2009. I know there are newer ones. Some of the basic content is really good. I did not read this one front to back. I read AEF 5 front to back. I
yeah,
read the CFRE. Oh, where's my refresher? The CFRE, it's a CFRE refresher course book is what it's
yeah,
called. I
right.
read that one front to back. And then the Compass I read front to back. I also went to the AHP conference, which is the Association of Healthcare Philanthropy conference, and they offered a 2-day master class. And from that, I got this Bible. And this, what I loved about doing the class, if it works in your schedule and in your budget, is I didn't have my kids or work or anything else calling. I was in 2 8-hour classes back to back, and this was the only thing that needed my attention. So it really helped me from my understanding. And then as Jack and I have talked about, CFRE.org has a ton of information on their page that talks you through what you need. The study plan, if you go to exam prep, there's the test content outline, the resources. There are a great deal of resources that are listed on there. The ones that I'm giving you are the ones that I used. Please use what works for you. I read AEF 5, AEF 4, and then the CFRE, AFP CFRE refresher course book front to back. And I also read the CFRE exam compass front to back. My studying and learning is reading the content and then taking notes on the content. And the answers are in the book, quite frankly. It was interesting when I sat down to take the tests, I would read something and say, oh my gosh, I read that in the book word for word. So the questions are in there. You can't necessarily find them, but they are in there. The practice exam, I purchased the practice exam 1 month out. I had heard, there's some other people who bought it longer term. I think you could do 90-day or 1 month. And some of the people who did it for the 90-day, they started to memorize. Like we talked about, you don't want to memorize. The questions in the practice exam are not in the actual exam. And then the study plan template, I created my own study plan. It was a working document. I did not follow it. If it wasn't working for my schedule or I wasn't obtaining information, I changed my study plan. Jack held me accountable, as well as Linda, Felicia, and Angie, and we shared all of that information as well. So those were my resources that I put together. I also, like I said, I put together a process document that was 17 pages. A lot of people sent me their notes. I did not find value in reading other people's notes because they wrote down what was important to them in that paragraph or section. I didn't know what was before it or what was after it. If you can decode other people's notes, more power to you. Again, learning your style, it didn't really work for me.
Yep.
Do you have anything to add to
Yep.
that, Jack?
No, that's good. I do like that. You know, I think someone asked in chat about the Canadian edition, Achieving Excellence in Fundraising in Canada. I do like it. It's a 2-volume set. I've read those both of those books, and there's some really good things that are in there that may not be in Achieving Excellence in Fundraising, the 5th edition. I am a huge fan of all of the books listed here. I had the opportunity to read Fundraising Basics, a complete guide in December, and I really enjoyed the book. There's a lot in that book that I'm going to be sharing with certainly with my study group. That's why it's now on my recommended reading list. Look, there's a huge recommended reading list at CFRE.org.
There is.
And you could buy all the books and spend literally thousands of dollars. So what I try to do is what are the most important resources that's affordable to someone who's planning on taking the CFRE exam. And that's what we have here. They're just our recommendations. You have to decide what works best for you. If you find in your testing of your key knowledge domains that you are really needing some help with ethics and accountability, say, then you might go and buy the book, which you could get used, by the way. I'm a big used book guy. You might go buy a used copy of the ethics that is the book on ethics that is recommended by CFRE. The 5th edition of Achieving Excellence in Fundraising is now out. You could get it used. The AFP CFRE Review course book, people who attend my study group are able to purchase a digital copy through AFP for 6 months. And honestly, that should be long enough for you to use it, as opposed to purchasing a hard copy, but it's available to you as well. Fundraising Basics is, again, you could get used. I haven't seen very many CFRE Accomplish 2024 study guides used, but I'm sure they'll start pop up as people pass the test. A lot of people hang on to these and pass them to their colleagues, which I think is awesome. Definitely create a library in your nonprofit organization to to do that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot of different resources out there. And certainly one of my favorite things is the talk resources. So always happy to have a telephone call or a Zoom meeting with anyone. It's really basically how I make friends at this age. So
Well, you do a good job at that, Jack.
anyway.
A question in the chat: will you know immediately if you pass?
You do. Yeah, you get up from your seat, raise your hand, the moderator will come get you up from your seat, and then they will go over and print the results for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you take the test from home, it's a great deal of time. Again, don't take the test at home. I beg you.
Yeah.
I feel very strongly about that, clearly.
Yeah. I remember when I took the CFRE, I didn't tell anyone at work, and that's okay. You don't have to tell anybody at your employment. And sometimes I think it's keep it to yourself, and I remember I went into work after I had passed the test, and I said to people, "Hey, I'm a CFRE. I passed the test today. I got the score. Here's my score," which I do not remember what my score was. By the way, you only need 500. Anything above 500 is being an overachiever. Just get 500, I like to say, right?
Yeah.
So, but I remember I went into work and I said, "Hey guys, I passed the CFRE test today," and people looked at me and said, "What's that?" So I was like, "Okay, well, at least do I get an afternoon off? What happens? Nothing." They were like, "Good for you. See you later. Get back to work."
Nothing.
Yeah. So, but now I think we're certainly much better known. It's much better known about the CFRE, what the credential is. I think, Mui, you were in my very first CFRE review class that I did for an AFP chapter way back when. That's where you and I met. So, and
Yeah.
we've been friends for Coming on 10 years, maybe?
Eight,
Eight
about.
years? Okay. Well, in my time, it's 10 years. In normal people time, it's just 8 years. So
So
yeah.
as we get closer to the end, I just want to get through the next slides
Okay.
and make sure that we leave some time for questions as well.
Okay, let's do that.
So this slide, we gave you a lot of information. Take a deep breath. Just believe in the power of yet. Positive affirmations. If this is something, after you take this, you're in this webinar with us today and you do more of a deep dive, if it's something you want to do, you have all of us here to support you and you will do it. And I think that's just the pause that I want to make. You cannot stress yourself out and go into this successfully. You've just got to go at your own pace. I remember 2 months in, people were already taking the exam and I thought, there's no way. There is no way. Know yourself. It's not a competition, nor is it a race either. So take your time and do it for you. Everyone else goes out the window at this point. This CFRE is for you if it's what you want. So just relax. That is so important, I think. And any roadblock you have, I had them all, every single one of them. I can attest to it. It's not worth it. You can't beat yourself up. There's Felicia. All right, Muhi, you have any other questions for us?
So Heather asked, please share more about the master's class. I believe this is maybe when you talked about American Healthcare and Philanthropy.
Yeah.
If you work in healthcare, is it available to other people?
So there are several master classes that you can take. AFP has one, though that one needs a bit of work from my understanding. There are a lot of different classes you can take depending on what conferences you go to. Pull up the agenda. Many times they do some type of a deep dive, whether it's CFRE, whether it's leaders only. Do a little bit of digging on your own. Association of Healthcare Philanthropy, you have to be in healthcare for that one, but I know several others do offer.
Yeah.
Great. And then from Shiloh, do we need to track CFRE credits while we are in exam prep? I think if you're, in the application and you have enough credits, you don't need to keep adding to it, but it's helpful because then, you have it in there. And then the follow-up question is, does the period to keep the credentials reset upon passing the exam?
Yeah.
So this is really important, Muhi, and I found this out learning the hard way. I kept taking classes or studying and I was over my hours. You can't go into the testing window until you have accomplished your education, everything, all of the different areas that qualify you in order to be able to test. When you're in the testing window, don't do any more extras because none of that matters. It will reset on the day you pass and then you're at 0. So I went in and I'm thinking, this is awesome. In the testing window, you can't enter anything. You can't enter any classes that you've taken. And so after I passed, I went back in to enter them. None of them counted into the next 3 years. So just pause and study during that time. Don't be extra. And then what was the second part of the question again?
You mentioned it about the credentials resetting upon passing the
Yes.
exam.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. And it's every 3 years.
Yeah. Very helpful as I take this in 12 days. Great.
I'm with you.
Oh, thank you so much. So in summary, we can look into noting that you want to assess your knowledge, figure out where you are in this. You want to make sure you are equipped with the resources that you have. Make sure you're reading, make sure you're testing, make sure you do what works for you in your learning style. And definitely join a study group. Thank you for all the good luck. Jack, if you want to drop your email again, we'll put up both of your LinkedIn's up on the screen so that everybody has it. And we'll leave it on pause here for a moment for you to connect with both Jack and Kim. You know, on behalf of Fundraising Academy and National University, thank you for lending your expertise with us. I hope that over 200 people who registered for this webinar and the 100 that joined us live all become CFREs with your guidance. So thank you so much for lending your expertise to us.
Thank you for
Thank you all
having us,
for
Louis.
attending today, and thank you to my great partner, Kim Kyle, who joined us today. Mui, great hosting as usual. And thanks to all of you guys. Keep us posted. We'd love to hear from you. And don't we have a Cultivate or a portal slide that you could put up
Yeah,
there?
definitely. So next up, we will be talking about our online learning portal. It's register.fundraising-academy.org. It's in the chat. You can find this webinar recorded. It's no cost to you, and all of our previous webinars in that portal, and a lot of great resources. So
And continuing education credits available free of
yes,
charge.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah. So you can add those into your CFRE application. And save the date for May 2nd and May 3rd for a 2-day in-person conference called Cultivate, hosted by Fundraising Academy in San Diego. And you can find that information in the chat as well. Again, on behalf of Fundraising Academy and Fundraising University, thank you to our audience for your time and participation. You'll see a great survey coming to you to help us provide more valuable content, and that'll appear on your screen at the end of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.